Good morning. Still getting used to this new routine. I'm used to being on Fridays, either live or recorded. So this is a whole new routine. And then my office space is set up differently. I have to figure out how to hide my husband's stuff. Maybe I'll put my screen there, but we decided to have a seating area in our office and then desks back to back. So for those of you that are new to the Creative Connection, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am your host, Cindy Thompson. I am now here every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific. I am either live like I am here today, or I may be recorded if I've had a guest that this time does not work out for them. For those not familiar with me, I am a storyteller, a coach, a speaker, and I am based just north of Seattle, Washington. And I come to you today with many thoughts. So I have been on this journey of podcasting since July 25th of last year. And I am going to give you a short little, because this plays into what my conversation is about today. I decided on the title, The Creative Connection, because I believe that we all want to connect. We are a species, the human race, that wants community, wants belonging. But we have learned over time, over the many, many, many years that we have been walking on this planet, we have learned to separate ourselves, to be independent, to not really outwardly show that we deep down care. And I think that this is so important right now. And my intention is never to be political and is to never alienate someone. My goal, my purpose, I believe my life journey is about helping people realize that they have a story to share and to share it because someone needs to hear it. Whether it be a story about a product or a story about themselves or a story about what's happening out there in the world. And this is my window out here to the world. I believe that we have a desire, all of us, to share something. And we need to be connected to ourselves first, the universe second, and that universe connection can be done one-on-one with individuals or as a collective body. So I have some notes today, mostly because I want to make sure that I don't forget the high points that I wanted to talk about. It's not a full script. It's really just an outline to keep me on track. So I acknowledge, first of all, that it feels like the pace of our life is speeding up, not slowing down. The world appears to be moving so fast and without regard to others. And I have found myself in the last 60 to 90 days really, 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 really slowing down. There was a moment in time that I considered stopping. I considered stopping all of the things that I cared about. But then I realized, what a cowardice move. That's not brave at all. What's brave is slowing down long enough to look, to be aware, to breathe in, acknowledge what we are seeing, acknowledge what we are hearing, but then to not attach to it, not grab onto it, but let it pass us by for a moment. Take another breath and listen. What do you hear? I've spent a lot of time doing that for the last 90 days. And this is about those moments that are not obvious. And sometimes they throw us off guard a little because after we become aware of something, then it's obvious. And I have a question about that little bit right there. I have spent a lot of time in the last 6 years really tuning into listening to the universe, the divine. Some of you may call it God, some of you may call it something else. But that space and that collective voice, I've spent a lot of time in the last 6 years listening to that. And what I've learned in my listening is that my gut, the little bits of wisdom that rise from within, that gut response is usually right. Whether it be about an idea to move a certain direction, to cross the street, to pause, to wait 5 minutes before I leave home, to whatever. I'm going to give you an example. Yesterday I had a doctor's appointment, and the point of the doctor's appointment is irrelevant, although what is relevant is the reason that I scheduled this doctor's appointment. The thing that occurred that prompted it occurred in October, but I couldn't get into the doctor until yesterday. And I contemplated, I need a sip of water. I contemplated last Friday, last Saturday, last Sunday. I contemplated when I got the reminder about that doctor's appointment, I contemplated canceling it because the reason I had scheduled it wasn't there anymore. However, on Monday, I went, you know what? No, just go. Just go. Talk about what happened in October. Talk about what's happening for you right now and see what happens. As it turns out, it was a fantastic conversation with a woman that I highly respect who did a small surgical procedure exactly a year ago, and our conversation, and she said, no, you're right to come in. Your intuition was telling you that something needs to shift. You're not sure what it is that needs to shift, but something needs to shift. And so we talked about options, and I chose an option. I feel good about that. And what's interesting is I came home and I shared that with my husband and my 3 adult sons, and they went, good for you, Mom. That's a great choice. Why am I bringing this up? Well, the first thing is to name something that's occurring for you. So if you have been feeling over the course of the last 30, 60, 90, half a year, 2 years, maybe so far back as when we saw the world shift previously, which was in 2020, when we were frightened by a virus. We stayed home. We shifted how we lived our lives. Some of us went remote, which unfortunately is an isolating from rather than a coming together of. Although there is something that came out of that time period that I think has the ability to bring us closer together. And that is this idea of streaming, that idea of Zooming, that idea of video calling, that idea of reaching out and having a conversation. So whatever that thing is that feels off, recognize it. That's the first thing. Once you recognize it, maybe slow down. Is it a good time to ask questions? That's interesting. I wonder what that is. Am I burned out or just tired? I'm not sure I like my job anymore. And you know what? I loved my job. So what happened? What is feeling off? Once you've recognized it, once you've recognized the thing that is feeling off, look at it. So I have a short little story for you, and I may have shared this story before. It is most definitely in my upcoming memoir that will be released later this year. But I have, as I've shared, 3 adult sons. One graduated from high school in 2013. The second one graduated in 2015. In 2015, my husband and I thought, well, I could take some time and step away from my full-time career and go to working part-time, picking something that looked interesting and fun and exploring it. Then my husband was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Now, mind you, he was only 52, which means I was 52. And now I had no health insurance, and I had been the person that supplied our health insurance. He has always worked in private practice, or at least for the last 32 years. And so for him to have the health insurance, it was very expensive. But we thought, well, just the two of us and one son, he can handle it. Plus I can COBRA my insurance for a while. But then he was diagnosed with cancer. And I found myself spinning. My mind was spinning with anxiety and angst. And I found a new job, and that new job had health insurance, and that new job had lots of great benefits. We got through the cancer treatments at the time, and a year after the diagnosis, he said, hey, I want to go to a conference in New York City. Would you like to come? Now, New York City had always been a city I wanted to go to. I had thought growing up that I would be a professional actor, and if I'm on stage, New York's the place to be. But I never made it. So here I was, the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, Christmas time, and my husband says, would you like to come with me to New York? OMG. Yes, I am there. We get there. It's a whirlwind of a trip. We fly overnight from Seattle to New York and arrive around 5 a.m. By the time we get to our hotel, it's nearly 8. Of course, our hotel room is not ready. So we, along with everyone else who arrived at the same hotel we did, sort of chill in the lobby. And then we begin our day and our week later that afternoon. The next day, we decided to do a hop-on, hop-off bus experience, explore the city a little bit, and then head to the 9/11 Memorial, because that was a place that my husband really wanted to see. And I wasn't sure what to expect. But once we were there, it was probably the most serene, quiet, calm place, and probably one of the busiest cities in the world, or at least one of the busiest cities that I have touched. There were these 2 reflection ponds in the middle of the complex. They had replaced where the towers had been, And there were names on placards all the way around the reflection pond. And there was an underground museum where the bits and pieces that they could not remove were. And my husband wanted to go down and see that. And I have never done really well in underground places. Not sure why, just hadn't ever done really well in underground places. So I decided to wait for him on a bench near the reflection ponds, under a tree, and just be. Now, I had had a habit of just being up until then, but not a habit of being like this being. There must have been somewhere around 50 to 100 people on this complex, and you could probably hear a pin drop across the pond. That's how quiet it was. It was so quiet and so sacred. As I sat there, I closed my eyes and just listened to the hum of what voices there were, the water flowing in the pond. And then the question rose from within me, why don't I want to go down to the museum? And a floodgate of memories opened up. Memories of times where I had attempted to go underground, memories of times where I felt so closed in by a space that was dark, below ground, and I started to feel my body respond to that, to those fears and those memories, that I had to pull myself back to just learning to slow my breath down, acknowledge what I was hearing and seeing and feeling, and then let them float right on by. After it floated on by, which to my surprise was easier than I thought, another question arose for me, and that is, why didn't I pursue this life? The life of acting, the life of moving to New York City. Why had I never traveled here before? About that time, my husband returned to me and said, "Thank you so much." And that question floated away, much like the memories I had had. But what's interesting is, for the rest of that week, that was Monday. We arrived on Sunday, that was Monday, and we would be flying home late on Saturday. Those two questions kept arising all week long. In fact, there was a space where we were during the week, it was Central Park, where that question popped up. And as it popped up, I experienced a great deal of physical pain. It was in my hips, and it was very much, I'm not sure I can walk kind of pain, which again also hung with me for the rest of the week. That week in the summer of 2016 and the months and 3 years that followed had me become aware of something that was presenting itself, but had me push it away. Maybe because of fear, maybe it was my ego trying to protect me, much like I think that memory of the times where I was below ground and why I didn't want to go down to the 9/11 memorial. But it took me 3 years to wrap my head around the fact that yes, I had had that dream once, but that dream had shifted. It now was about wanting to help others find their story, share their story, in essence, write the playbook of their lives. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. We should not shouldest upon thyself. I reflect on that every once in a while. And I realize that I needed that 3 years. I needed that 3 years to slow myself down. I had been running, not from my life, but running to try and catch my life. For the nearly 25 years leading up to that moment in time. If you're curious what it was 3 years later in 2019 that had me able to slow down, become aware, acknowledge, and begin to understand what was happening. He was a trainer in a gym. He was a trainer in a gym, followed by a person whose path I had crossed in 2015, but chose not to delve into until January of 2020. And what I learned is that I needed to be more present in my life. I needed to trust the questions that rose. I needed to sit and breathe and wait and slow down. And in my slowing down, I could recognize that I had shifted, I had changed, I as a person had evolved. In a few months, I will be 65, and I am seeing again that call to slow down, not to slow down and stop anything, but to slow down and recognize where I am right now in this moment in time and space. And do the ideals and beliefs and actions of my 30, 40, 50-year-old self still apply to my 65-year-old self? In most cases, yes, because they are truly myself. So I have a couple of reflection questions for you. Enough of my story. If you are someone that likes to sit with these, and please sit with these. If you are someone who likes to journal or write, then jot these down, and at the next opportunity to have to just sit with them, then do that. So the first one is, What feels slightly off that you've been dismissing or minimizing or not paying attention to? What feels slightly off that you have been dismissing, pushing away, ignoring? A follow-up question to that one is, where might you be pushing for answers in your life instead of listening? Is it in relationship with others? Is it in your work? Is it in your self-care? Is it in your spiritual care? Where might you be pushing for answers instead of listening? And the last one is a follow-up to the previous two. What would it be like to pause, to breathe, to quieten before taking the next step? What would it be like to pause, to breathe, to listen before taking the next step? Listening is oftentimes where we truly see ourselves, the essence of who we are. In the slowed down moments, in relationship with another person, it is oftentimes the moment that you slow to smile, recognize, hug, to say, I hope you have a nice day, or to welcome them home. There is a conversation that goes on inside of us all the time. And most of us don't listen to that inner voice because we haven't allowed ourselves enough time to quiet, to slow down. I noticed that in the summer of 2020, I intentionally began a training around presence. It was the art of feminine and masculine presence. And the training I was doing primarily for myself, but after a couple of months, I realized that this really was something that I could share with others, like my husband, who I did invite in, and he too now teaches this. But that summer, I realized that if I allowed myself to slow, that I started to show up for me, as me, not as the person that the world out there wanted to me to be, but as the person that I am. I learned a lot about myself when I found the still point, the quiet point. I was able to open my heart more. I could hear the divine in the world more. I could see the angels walking amongst us, meaning the people on this planet who are here to quietly help without fanfare. What I have learned over the last 6 years is that we all want this. We all want to find that still point, and many of us don't know how. Or we're afraid that if we start, it will change us too much and we won't be the people that we believe we are. So I'm going to touch on the second one first, and then I'll come back to the first one. The person that you are is at your core. It's in your heart. It's in your belly. It's in you. That being lives inside this human body. It's my belief that it is a spiritual being that lives inside this human body, and I am experiencing humanness. And in order for me to get in touch with that being who is connected to the divine and the rest of the universe, I have to slow down enough to be able to witness, to observe, and to feel. I have learned that I am more myself now, after learning how to find the still point, than I ever was. So it's a myth that if you slow down, you will not be you. That's the first thing. The second thing is, you don't know how to find the still point. I believe you do, but what you need is some help to re-find it. Here's the good news. I'm doing a small 10 to 12 women gathering, half-day gathering on Saturday, February 7th, online, to help us reconnect and find the still point. Find your still point. If this resonates with you, I encourage you to check out the link that's in the show notes. So there's 3 things about it. This is not about fixing. It is about pausing. You don't need to be fixed. You need to pause. You need to learn to be aware. This is intentionally small and gentle because one of the things I learned as I have reconnected to that still point is that I needed to be recognized as well. I needed to be seen. I not only needed to see myself, I needed to know that other people saw me. Because there are limited spots, I know that it is only for those of you that know that you are seeking this. So if this episode is resonating and you're longing for that space to slow down, to listen, to reconnect, check the show notes out. You know, one of the other things before I close today is that every step of the way on my journey of life, and maybe you've noticed this too, there has been a doorway or a window that has invited me to go through. And when it did, there was something behind me that shut. It didn't slam shut, but it closed gently. And while I could revisit it, that was not me anymore. I've shared before on this podcast that one of my favorite playwrights, and he's complicated, and it's not just about him, it's about the people that were around him, that wrote with him and for him and worked with him, and that's Shakespeare. And my favorite quote of his, and it's a long monologue, so I'll just do the first bit, is that all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. Each knows their own entrance and exit. ... And I oftentimes, when I am working with a group or in a group, I will say, and we have forgotten which ones are ours and which ones are someone else's. And this finding your still point is about learning to re-recognize which doors and windows are yours for the taking. I appreciate your time being here today, whether you were live with me or whether you are watching the recording. I appreciate your time. It is a choice you make. I have written over the last several weeks a couple of times about this. Most recently, this week on Substack, I wrote about quiet misalignment. Sunday, I wrote about feeling off. When everything on the outside looks fine, but something feels off. If any of this resonates with you, take a look at those articles, write about it, consider those reflection questions. I will be back next week, provided that I am able to secure the guest that I am looking to secure. I may be recorded with the guest. If not, I will be here myself. You can count on me every Wednesday, 9 a.m. Pacific. And then as we get into the month of February, I am going to alternate meditation, podcast, because I believe that that meditation gives us a moment to slow and quiet ourselves. If you like this, please subscribe, share if there's someone you know that can benefit from what you heard today. And the week of Valentine's Day, I'm just going to give you a heads up, the week of Valentine's Day. So either the Wednesday before, which is the 10th, I believe, no, the 11th, or the Wednesday after, which is going to be the 18th, I will be on here live with my husband. If you have not checked out our other podcasts, do so. We are working on creating a institute of extraordinary relationships. My husband is a Gottman trained therapist. I am a facilitator in the 7 principles, And we like to have conversations about relationship. And we do it in partnership with what I spoke about today, presence. Showing up in relationship with another person starts with you showing up with you. So many blessings to you. I will see you soon. Have a fantastic day.